This is our amazing brain. Frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, temporal lobe. The frontal lobe has the primary motor area. It also has the Broca's speech area. It's the thinking, planning, problem-solving area. The parietal lobe is where the processing of sensory input. It contains the Wernicke's area, which overlaps with the temporal lobe. The parietal lobe is the primary somatosensory area. It's also the somatosensory association area. It's the common integrative area. Parietal lobe is the integrative area. The occipital lobe is the visual association area and the primary visual area. Makes sense of the visual information as well. In the temporal lobe, makes sense of auditory information. It's primarily the auditory area. It's also the olfactory area and the facial recognition area. The Broca's speech area is in the frontal lobe. The Wernicke's area which is a motor area and involves processing of sensory input and body orientation, overlaps with the temporal lobe. Occipital makes sense of visual information, temporal makes sense of auditory information, and parietal is the integrative area. Parietal is the integrative area. Now the functions of each of the brain. Before we get to that, where is the central sulcus? Where is the postcentral gyrus? Where is the Broca's speech area? Where is the visual association area? In the occipital lobe. Where is the sensory association area? In the parietal lobe. Where is the area that controls behaviours and coordinates information from other area? Frontal lobe, prefrontal association. The taste cortex is near the thalamus. Two hemispheres are separated by longitudinal fissures. Each hemisphere is divided into 4 lobes: frontal, parietal, occipital, temporal, and the hidden fifth part, which is called insula. The auditory association area is where words become speech. Wernicke's area. And that's in the temporal lobe, which is the making sense of auditory information. The diencephalon includes the thalamus, hypothalamus, and epithalamus. It also includes the subthalamus. What does the thalamus do? It's a relay station and registers pain. What does the hypothalamus do? Helps govern the endocrine system, controls the ANS, regulates emotional and behavioural patterns. What does it do? Helps govern the endocrine system, controls the ANS, regulates emotional and behaviour patterns. You could say that as GEC, govern endocrine system, emotional and behaviour patterns, controls ANS. GEC, hypothalamus, GEC. Epithalamus contains the pineal gland, which we know secretes melatonin, regulates circadian rhythms, makes cerebroneal fluid. Pineal gland secretes melatonin, regulates circadian rhythms, makes cerebroneal fluid. You could say that epithalamus is RPM. And I like that because it reminds me of rates per minute. Regulates circadian rhythms, pineal gland, which we know secretes melatonin, makes cerebroneal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid. The brainstem includes midbrain, medulla oblongata, but before that, in between those, like a sandwich, is the pea. The pea's in the sandwich. Midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata. The midbrain coordinates visual and auditory reflexes. The pons helps control breathing. And the medulla oblongata has a cardiovascular centre, a respiratory centre, and a reflex centre. It also controls information in and out of the cerebellum. The medulla oblongata you could say is cry. C-R-R-I. Cardiovascular centre, respiratory centre, reflex centre for coughing, swallowing, sneezing, and information in and out of cerebellum. Medulla oblongata, cry. Cardiovascular centre, rate of heartbeat. Respiratory centre sets the rhythm for breathing. Reflex centre for coughing and sneezing. And information in and out of the cerebellum. The midbrain, so the brainstem has, in a sandwich, midbrain, pons, which controls breathing, and medulla oblongata cry. The cerebrum has the cerebral cortex, which is the surface layer and grey matter. And it has two cranial nerves, olfactory and optic, 1 and 2. The cerebral cortex is the surface layer, which is grey. The cerebral white matter is underneath the grey, and its function is to control voluntary movement of limbs, and trunk pyramids. And learning of new motor skills. That's the bump pyramids of those tracks. Cerebrum functions. The sensory area registers sensations. The motor area makes decisions and takes action. The association area integrates functions. SAM. The cerebrum functions SAM. Sensory areas, registering sensations. Association areas, integrative functions such as memory and emotions. Motor areas, centre for making decisions and taking actions. The limbic system is all emotional aspects of behaviour and memory, and is associated with pleasure and pain. And the limbic system is like that question mark. The cerebellum corrects voluntary muscle contractions and posture based on sensory data from body about actual movements. Also gives equilibrium and balance. The cerebellum corrects voluntary muscle contractions and posture based on sensory data from body about actual movements. It seems that grey matter is everywhere apart from right in the middle. The support systems for the brain are vascular, ventricles, and cerebral spinal fluid. The nuclei in the brain is called basal ganglia. Its function is to control large automatic movements of skeletal muscles and is the processing link between thalamus and motor cortex. The function of the basal ganglia is to control large automatic movements of skeletal muscles and is the processing link between thalamus and motor cortex.